Hello, welcome to the Is It Just Me podcast. I am your host, Dr. Angie Ange. This podcast will entail truthful, transparent conversation about everyday life and the lessons learned. This podcast is for everyone from teenagers to the elderly, although some topics may be rated R. Every topic is based on living life and learning life lessons. Today's topic, we're going to talk about enabling versus helping. And I specifically chose this topic because there's just too many individuals out here walking around with these entitled attitudes, and they're based off of the sense of being enabled in one way or another. Before we begin, I would like to state this disclaimer that I am not an expert, and everything that is being discussed is the independent opinion and reality of myself. Now, when I say enabling versus helping, growing up, depending on how you were raised or who raised you, most people had some form of help. You always meet those people that always say they never had nobody and they got it out the mud and they did everything by themselves. I'm not one of those individuals. I didn't have a lot of help, but the small village that I had helped me tremendously get to each level and accomplish each milestone and goal that I set for myself. And with those people helping me, I'm forever grateful. I was taught one hand wash the other, both hands wash the face. And for those of you that don't know what that means if you help me, I'm going to help you, vice versa. And at some point, helping has turned into people with these ungrateful, entitled attitudes. Sometimes helping can be a form of enabling to individuals. When you enable somebody, sometimes you enable them to be dependent upon you, not realizing in your mind you're thinking that you're helping, but sometimes you're enabling them. So you might be enabling them to remain unemployed, or you might be enabling them to keep having children. You know, that I don't know about grandparents now because I can't speak on anybody else as a grandparent. I know how I am as a grandparent, and I get my grandson whenever I can. I'll watch him if my daughter needs me to watch him. Like, I'm that hands-on grandmother that I'm going to be there for my grandchild. And my mother was that hands-on grandmother that was there for her grandkids. I don't care what it was. I could pick up the phone and call her, ask my mom, can you watch the kids? When I was in school, my mother helped me pick my kids. I was working full time, going to school full time. My mother would help me with picking my kids up from school or dropping them up off to school. Whatever it was, I had that small village of help. So my mother enabled me in a positive way because she enabled me to be able to continuously progress and achieve goals because she assisted me by helping me with my children so that I can go to school after work and do those type of things. She also enabled me so that I can hang out in the clubs. Let's not get it twisted, because my mother did have my kids on the weekends while I was out partying when I used to go out. This is, years ago. But I say all of that to say sometimes enabling can be positive and sometimes it can be negative. And for the most part, a lot of times, some people enable other people's in a negative light and it creates this sense of entitlement. And it's crazy to me how people that need people are so entitled and ungrateful. And this leads me to a situation that happened to me last week. I wanted to do my good deed for the month, but because of this situation, I have scaled back, and now my good deeds will be done quarterly because I don't have the patience for the bullshit. I was walking on 125th Street, and a homeless guy asked me if I could buy him something to eat. They put a new Raising Cane's on 125th, asked me could I give him something to eat. You know what? I'm like, you know what? Let me do my good deed for the month. Let me go in. So I go in, I order him a three-piece meal. For all of you that know, Raising Cane's is not a three-piece meal, it's not like $3, it's $15. But again, I'm doing my good deed for the month. He proceeds to tell me that a three-piece meal wasn't enough food for him, and could he get a six-piece meal? So I looked at him and I said, absolutely the fuck not. You cannot get a six-piece meal. You can take this three-piece meal that I'm ordering, or you could take nothing. He proceeded to say that, well, that's not enough food for me, and took nothing. I say, now I see why you're homeless and hungry because you're fucking ungrateful. I still proceeded to get the food. It's 10:30 in the morning. I'm annoyed at this motherfucker with his ungrateful, entitled attitude. But I say all of that to say the homeless population, for those individuals that are actually homeless, the way it's set up, I'm only speaking about in New York because I don't know how it's set up in other states. But in New York, you are homeless, you go into a homeless shelter. They provide you with food, they provide you with toiletries, they provide you with a place to stay, they provide you with resources for you, like if you're on drugs or if you are alcohol abuse, childcare. They help provide you with all of these things so that the goal is to get you out of the shelter, get you on your in your own apartment so you're no longer homeless. And constantly providing these things to people, it seems that is we're enabling the homeless population, but in a negative way. And I'm not going to say all homeless people, but I'm going to say most of them, because I know several people who have went into the shelter multiple times, got assistance, got these apartments, got this rental assistance, and fucked it up, and then ended up going back in the shelter to redo it all over again. So at the city of New York is enabling these individuals to have these fucking ungrateful attitudes. And it's like, at what point do we cut it off and we say, okay, we're no longer helping. Now we're enabling, but we're enabling in a negative way. Um, in New York, they have these asylum seekers that are coming in by the busload. Busloads of asylum seekers and migrant people are coming in New York, and New York is automatically giving them benefits, place to stay in a shelter, food cards, and toiletry cards, $1,000 and things of that nature. And I'm all for helping anybody in need. But at what point do we stop and say, this is not helping the problem, it's only making it worse? Because now you have all these influx of all these thousands and thousands of people that are coming in, and you're enabling them to get benefits from the state, benefits from the city, federal funded shit. But the individuals who really need the assistance and that are here, y'all giving them the runaround. And these migrants and asylum seekers, they don't have to provide any documentation, and you automatically throwing food stamps and cash assistance, cards, and all of these things at them. But the individuals who are living here, let's say they fell on hard times, they lost their job, they no longer could get unemployment, can't find a decent job, and they go for benefits, and you want to give them the runaround. At what point do we say it's no longer helping the situation, but it's enabling them to continuously depend on the state or other people for assistance? And I'm not just speaking about the asylum seekers and migrants. I'm speaking about individual and people also. You know, you have that family member who's just always, lack of a better term, but the bum of the family. But it's always somebody enabling their behavior. So you might have a grandmother or aunt or a cousin that lets them stay with them and lets them live with them, and they have no drive and no motivation to do anything because you keep allowing them to live with you for free or at for a low cost. Maybe they give you their food stamps every month, or maybe they paying you $200 to sleep on your couch, or whatever the case may be. And I'm all for helping someone. Everybody needs help, and everybody needs somebody at some point in life. Everybody needed somebody, so I get that. But when does it get to a point to where, as you're no longer helping, now you're enabling? So it's time that we start to differentiate between the two, between helping and enabling. It's not just the homeless population, it's not just the migrants, it's not just the asylum seekers. I mean individuals and our family as well. When we're always the one to reach out to help because you might be the one in your family that's well off or you're doing good, and they always come to you for help. But you sit back and you think about it. If something happens to you, can you go to them for help? When do we cut it off, or when do we stop and we say, you know what, I'm no longer going to be that enabling family member. I'm no longer going to enable certain things, because when you continuously help and you continuously enable, you help create individuals who have this ungrateful, unappreciative mentality. That's the person that's, let's say, you do something for them. You constantly helping, you doing something for them, and y'all get into an argument, and the first thing they say, I didn't ask you to do that for me. That's ungrateful. So it's like, hold up. No, you didn't ask me to do it, but you didn't ask me not to do it either. So when do we sit back and we self-reflect and we say, you know what? We're no longer going to help. We're no longer going to be this enabling population. We're no longer going to continuously enable these things and start letting people take accountability for their bullshit. And I was always the one to always help. But as time went on, as I've started growing and I started seeing that people really do not give a fuck about you and what you're going through. They only give a fuck about themselves. I pulled back. And I pulled back with a lot of people because motherfuckers will use you and have no qualms about it. You could say yes, 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 yes all day. And the one time that you say no, they will fucking act like you fucked up person, you the nastiest person, you the meanest person in the world. It's like I done said yes 50 times. So the 51st time that I say no, now I'm this mean fucked up person. Those are individuals who have the entitled, ungrateful attitude. And it comes from being enabled all of their lives. I don't like to generalize, but it seems as if though in the African American and the Hispanic community, our grandparents, great grandparents, and some parents continuously enable, especially the males in the family, with the bullshit. You make up excuses for everything that they do, or they don't got their shit together. Instead of you putting your feet down, standing firm on business, and like, no, you need to fucking go get a fucking job. If you don't have a fucking job, then you can't stay here no more. Our parents and grandparents continuously enables the behavior and lets them be the fucking bums that they are. If we had more parents and more grandparents and more individuals who stood firm on creating boundaries, creating safe boundaries for family members and friends and kids, maybe we would not have so many people walking around with this fucking ungrateful, entitled attitude because we're no longer enabling them. Yes, we can help you along the way. I have no problem with helping you, but I'm not going to constantly enable you. Like after the fifth time, I'm still helping you with the same shit. Clearly, that's not helping, that's enabling. When is it time for us to wake up and learn that we need to differentiate between enabling and helping? Because when you enable, you're only creating these adults that are walking around out here with these selfish, entitled, ungrateful attitudes. When you enable an individual, you're doing them a disservice because what are you really teaching them by enabling them? You're not teaching them anything. All you're teaching them is that they can constantly come to you, whatever it is, and you're going to enable the bullshit. You're not going to let them know that they're wrong. You're not going to let them know that they need to be an adult or they need to be accountable and they need to stand up and stand firm and, um, you know, take the consequences for their actions. You're constantly making excuses, helping, creating the monsters that we have walking around here with these ungrateful, entitled attitudes. And I'm all for helping. I'm one of the people that I'm always helping somebody, and it doesn't matter. I don't look for nothing in return. So I'm not the person that's like, oh, I'm helping you because I know I'm gonna need you to help me. No, if I have information and somebody asks me about the information, I'm giving it to them. If I can help you in any kind of way, I'm helping you. But sometime you have to really sit back and realize that helping is not always a good thing because you're helping and you're constantly helping the same person with the same stuff over and over again. It goes from helping to enabling. We have to stop enabling certain things with certain people. And I know it's easier said than done. It's a process. You go through shit. And like I said, everybody needs somebody. Of course, it's going to be people walking out there like, oh, I don't need nobody. I could do this by myself. Everybody needs somebody at some point in their life. I don't give a fuck how strong you are. I don't give a fuck how much you think you got it. Everybody needs somebody at some point in their life. You may feel like the individuals that you had in your life, they weren't supportive of you and they didn't help you. You might, I'm not saying the person that's going to help you is a family member. Shit, I don't even fuck with half of my relatives. I created my own family. I have friends that I will jump out the window for before I do that for a relative. So I'm not saying it's the people that you're related to that you got to do these things for, but in any relationship, friendship, significant other, you have to create boundaries and you have to create safe boundaries for yourself so that you are not letting people use you And you're not enabling people to be dependent upon you. And you're not enabling people to always think that every time they come to you, that you're going to help them. And that's something that I had to learn. I was that person that I'm always helping everybody. Everybody could come to me. It didn't matter what it was. I'm always so gung ho to help. But then I went through a situation and it was like the same individuals that I helped with no questions asked was someone talking shit about me now that I'm the one on the receiving end and I need the help. So it's like, hold up. When do you wake up and you realize that we all again one when do you wake up and realize one hand washes the other, both hands wash the face? It's not always about you being so strong and independent because even the most independent people need somebody at some point in their life. It's more so about creating boundaries and letting individuals know, like, I have no problem with helping you, but I'm not going to constantly help you so that I'm enabling you to be dependent upon me. And that's what I feel like a lot of parents and grandparents, especially I'm gonna speak of my generation, our grandparents and great grandparents, they enabled their kids and their grandkids to be dependent upon them so much, to rely on them for so much. And it's not so much that they didn't teach us to be independent or teach my generation to be independent. They taught us to be independent, but they also taught us to be dependent upon them for certain things. And when you enable certain behaviors, that's what you're creating. You're creating a dependency upon you for certain things. And there's nothing wrong with helping. I don't want anyone to take that I'm saying, oh, helping, you shouldn't help nobody. Let people figure it out on their own. No, I feel like everybody needs help. Everybody needs some kind of help somewhere along the line throughout their life. I'm not never saying, oh, you shouldn't help anyone. What I'm saying is you have to create boundaries and you have to draw that line and differentiate between helping and enabling because so many individuals out here who have been enabled that are ungrateful and they walk around with these attitudes and they really think that their attitude is nothing wrong with it. Like going back to the situation with me with the homeless guy, I had made a video on social media because like I really was annoyed. Like he really annoyed me. Somebody gonna say, oh, well, he's allowed to have standards and state what he wants and what he doesn't want. So I said, my response was, you can't have standards when you asking me for something. You asking me for my money. You can't have standards on what the fuck goes on with my money. You can have standards with your own money. But if I'm giving you something out of the kindness of my heart, I'm not asking for anything in return. I don't have to give you shit because I don't know this. I didn't know this fucking man from a can of paint. He walked up to me on 125th Street. How the fuck is it that you got to stand it with my money? So when I read the comment from the young lady, I'm like, okay, you definitely are one of those individuals that have this entitled attitude because how you gonna have standards with somebody else's money? Like, help me understand. I didn't understand that. You cannot have standards when it comes to spending somebody else's shit. You can't have standards when you're dependent upon somebody else. That doesn't work that way. You can have all the fucking standards in the world when you're spending your own money. When you going, if he was going and raising canes with his own money, he could have bought him fucking 10 6-piece meals. That's his money. You do what the fuck you want to do with your money. But when it's somebody else's, how you gonna tell me he could have standards on what he want and it's my money? You sometimes people don't think like I really don't be understanding the way of thinking for some individuals and I don't know where the disconnect is, but uh, helping someone is one thing. Enabling someone is something totally different. But it's a lot of individuals who have been enabled walking around. These are the same individuals that are very ungrateful and entitled. They feel like you have to give me this or this is oh well, I ain't asked to like this is I ain't asked to be born. Excuse me? Nobody asked to be born the last time I checked. There's no embryo that said, hey, make sure you carry me the full term because I want to be born. Like, I don't understand that statement because no one asked to be born. That's not how life works. And those individuals who make that statement, because there's a lot of young adults that keep saying, well, I didn't ask to be here because there's anything that your parent do for you after you're 18, you should be appreciative of. Because it's a lot of individuals that when they turn 18, their parents put them out. Oh, you grown, you on your own, you got to figure it out. So anything that your parent do for you when you're over 18, when you're a young adult, when you're adult, should be appreciative. It shouldn't be, oh, well, I ain't asked to be born. Motherfucker, didn't nobody ask to be born. Shit, I didn't ask to be born, but I'm motherfucking here. And I'm an adult, which is the fucking worst shit ever, but that's another topic for another day. However, I am an adult and I'm responsible for myself because my parents had me. No, because your parents have you. You go through life stages, and the way the world is set up, when you hit a certain age, you're considered legally you're an adult. I like to say they're young adults because they're still trying to figure things out. At 18, you don't fucking know which way is up. Some 18-year-olds still don't even know how to clean their ass correctly. Let's be clear. So I'm not a fan of individuals putting their kids out at 18, but I do understand why some parents put their kids out at 18 because we both can't be in here grown. There's rules that you have to follow, and there's rules everywhere that you go. And this is something that I tell my kids. There's rules. You have to follow rules everywhere you go. Even if you people like, oh, I don't want to work for nobody. I'm gonna work for myself, which is okay. You can work for yourself and be an entrepreneur, but there's still rules of being an entrepreneur. So everywhere you go throughout life, there's rules. If you cannot follow the rules in your parents' household and you feel that you're growner than the people who you're living with, then most definitely you need to get out and get on your own and get your own shit and be independent fully. At the end of the day, what someone at the end of the day, your parent allowing you to still live in their house as a young adult, as an adult, is a privilege. First of all, nowadays, fucking rent is super fucking expensive. So you should want to stay home until you're financially stable to be able to live independently on your own comfortably, not just living independently and struggling. No, struggling is not a good thing. I don't know why these young adults want to go out there and figure it out and struggle. But if you can live at home, stay at home. If you have your parents helping you and they're not enabling you, and it's a list of things, you living at home, you're a young adult, they're not asking you to pay no bills, contribute to no bills. You working, you get to keep your own money, do whatever it is, save your money for whenever you feel like, you're independent enough to live on your own. That's someone helping you that your parents set rules. Okay, this is the rules of the household. You're still living in their house. And even though you're a young adult, those rules must be followed. That's helping. Enabling is you're living in your parents' house, you're disrespectful to your parents, but they still let you live there. They tell you what the rules are, you don't follow the rules, but you still live there. There's no consequence for anything that you do. That's enabling. At what point do we differentiate and say, you know what? I'm no longer going to be that parent that enables this bullshit. Because when you don't let individuals know, or anybody, your child, your cousin, your friend, when you don't let them know that there's consequences for their actions, you're raising an adult who's going to have this entitled attitude, who feels like they can do what they want to do when they want to do, and there's no consequence for the behavior that they display. That's what enabling does. We have to get to a point to whereas we are helping and we're helping our children or helping our friends or helping our family members become better individuals. Because enabling is only creating this world of sick, entitled people who just feel like you have to give them something. And I do not have the answer, and I don't know how the fuck we get to a point to whereas we no longer enable and we figure out how to help. I do know that teaching accountability is one step. You have to hold people accountable for their bullshit. Now, whether they want to take accountability and own up to it, that's another topic. But accountability has to be taught. And I feel accountability has to be taught at a young age because if you're not teaching your kids that there's consequences for their actions, what do you think they're going to grow up to be? They're going to grow up and think that they can do what they want to do and there's no consequence for their action. And that's because they lack accountability because it hasn't been taught to them. You have to teach accountability and we have to stop enabling. Helping, definitely. I'm a fan of helping everybody. Again, I'm always going to say everybody needs somebody. No matter how many times people be like, oh, I got it out the mud, or I did this by myself. Or Everybody needs somebody. It might not be a family member, it might be a friend, but everyone needs some help at some point in their life. What we have to do is differentiate between helping and constantly enabling. Because if you notice, if you constantly help somebody with the same stuff over and over and over and over again, now we're enabling them to always be dependent upon us and come to us when they need that help. How do you break the chain? That I don't know. I can't give you the answer to how to break it. I can't give you the answer on what it is that you need to do to not be an enabler, but I do know in order to not be an enabler, you also need to have boundaries and stand firm on your boundaries and don't be one of those people that, on the fence with everything. No, it's either black or white. This is what it is, and you stand firm on it and you let individuals know because you don't want to continuously be a person who enables somebody because at the end of the day, they're going to grow to be entitled and they're going to be the ones talking about, well, I ain't asked you to do that, but you didn't ask me not to either. I know that enabled bodied adults are very entitled adults, and we need to move away from this system of entitlement. I don't have the answers to how to help these individuals, these homeless and these migrant workers and these ungrateful ass people, but I do know that it's a lot of people walking around with these ungrateful, entitled attitudes, and it's not a positive thing. We need to work on being individuals who are helpers as opposed to enablers. Because when you are an enabler, you're helping create a system of people who have these selfish, entitled, ungrateful attitudes, and it's not conducive to the population that we want to live in and create a positive environment and have no, I don't. We need to work on being individuals who create boundaries and we have those boundaries in place so that when we do help people, those boundaries are set there and we stand on them so that it doesn't turn into us being or it doesn't turn into you being an enabler. You're there to help the individual and not enable them. You don't want to create someone who's ungrateful and unappreciative of the things you did. And that's what being an enabler does. You are helping create individuals who are ungrateful and unappreciative because you constantly enable the negative behavior. You enabled the bullshit, and now they have this sense of entitlement and ungratefulness. At the end of the day, we need to work on not being enablers. It's okay to help individuals. But again, you have to draw the line somewhere, even with helping, because helping too much, motherfuckers start getting ungrateful and unappreciative. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. We need to work on not being enablers, but more so helping out with limits, setting limits, because givers need to set limits because takers don't have any. So we need to set limits when we're helping individuals on what we're going to help them with. Because the minute that you continuously help somebody, now you're no longer a helper, you're an enabler. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Is It Just Me podcast.